Welcome back to Wealth Mavericks, the only podcast that helps doctors unlock the secrets to building generational wealth. And I'm excited about our conversation today. It's kind of a continuation of our last episode. So, Aaron, what are we talking about today?
On our last episode, we talked about how any doctor we talk to, they say, I have a team, I have a CPA, I have a financial advisor. But our point is that those people are not working together. And so you really don't have someone looking at your full financial picture.
When's the last time your financial advisor spoke with your insurance agent? Never. It's never happened. You know, how about your CPA? How about your whole team getting together and meeting? I know it's never happened for you because you don't have that family office level of care.
At the end of the day, that's what planning is. If I'm running a business and I'm driving, I'm going to a destination and I've got to turn, it's not an easy transition. But just know there's another exit.
We were pretty general in the last episode, and we wanted to dive deeper into what is the difference between having your individual members of your financial team and having a family office like Terra Firma, or having someone like Bob working on your behalf. And Bob, I loved what you said in the last episode about how in the medical field, everyone understands that there are very specific specialties. You know, a dentist is not going to do the same thing for you that an orthodontist does. And a pediatrician isn't going to know how to do brain surgery. But we look at our financial team and we're like, our CPA can do all of that. But really, your CPA just serves a very specific purpose. So I'd like to talk about what purpose does a tax strategist play and just the huge impact that it can have.
I think it's a great continuation. Let me clarify what CPA means. Certified Public Accountant. Nowhere did I just say professional tax expert. None of those words, those three words, certified public accountant, defined as a tax planner or expert in tax planning or anything to that effect other than a certified public accountant. Accounting. Very important to run a business, to understand your accounting aspects. But again, like we said last time, I think the expectation put on a lot of these financial teams, you, doctor, need to have an understanding of what expectation that is. And many times you don't. And that's okay. Why should you? You went to medical school, you didn't go to school to learn finance and investing, right? That's what your team that you're hiring is supposed to do. But most of the time, you know, Aaron, and Joe, we've had these conversations when we meet with our doctor, whether they're a prospect learning about us or with our existing members, the conversation of how disjointed a lot of this financial team is. Where the CPA is not talking to the financial planner who may or may not be doing the insurance coverages for the doctor. A lot of times also the retirement guy is for the practice, but not the doctor individually, or depending on how large the practice is. And so there's a lot of disjointedness. And so that puts a doctor in a position to have to manage all this. Just as a patient who has certain health issues and you need to see multiple specialists, who's managing all that?
Right.
It's us. Sadly enough, just, do I have a list of prescription medication that I'm taking that I can give to that new specialist when they ask, what medicines are you taking?
That's one of my favorite, Bob, one of my favorite illustrations that we have is like, doctor at the center, and it's like you've got your financial advisor and you've got your CPA, you've got your insurance person, and you've got like all of this financial team around you, and all of those lines connect to you, doc, at the center. And I think it's such a great visual representation. Like, who's in charge of all this? You are, and you are not qualified to handle all of that. And I think that disjointedness creates a lot of turbulence. Like thinking of a plane flying through turbulent air, that's not a pleasant experience for most people. And candidly, my dad went through this. a few years ago when he had heart surgery. So he had open heart surgery. It was a very traumatic event. And I'm sure he's not the only person who's had this happen, but he literally, like, his whatever the anesthesia that he was on was not working properly in his body. He was feeling a lot of the things that were going on in the surgery. So he had a terrible open heart surgery experience that his cardiologist had ordered. Like, that was the instruction he gave to the surgeon. Surgeon did their job. 3 days after the surgery happened, his cardiologist called him. And the cardiologist was not calling to follow up and check in on him. They were calling to see when the surgery was going to be. The cardiologist was it's like these teams that were disjointed. So I know, Doc, you know this, you've experienced this in your world when there's disjointed care that's being provided, the pain that can cause to, your patient. And we look at it the same way. Like, when's the last time your financial advisor spoke with your insurance agent? Never. It's never happened. How about your CPA? How about your whole team getting together and meeting? I know it's never happened for you because you don't have that family office level of care. And I think Bob, I think you've done such an amazing job at Terra Firma of creating like the glue around the financial team from a holistic perspective. And so I think people just need to understand that there is a different way to do things if you choose to do it differently.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're absolutely right. And but when you think about it, how easy is it to change, or how easy, I guess the analogy is coming to my mind is when you're driving, right? Your spouse is with you, you're driving to, let's say, a dinner party to meet some friends, right? And you're driving and all of a sudden your spouse says, no, you got to turn here, as you're starting to pass where you need to turn. You've got a choice. Do I put this baby on 2 wheels? Do I Tokyo drift? Or do I just go, we'll wait for the next exit? And then we say some choice words. And there may be some choice words back and forth with the spouse, right? At the end of the day, that's what planning is. If I'm running a business and I'm driving, I'm going to a destination and I've got to turn, it's not an easy transition. But just know there's another exit. Great, I can go on that exit. And here's the amazing thing. I can just turn around and get redirected back on the path that I'm supposed to be on. It's the same thing with what we're talking about. Decisions that we're making aren't life and death in our world. In your world, Doc, it could be. Not for you, but for your patients. For us, it's not life and death. So we can make adjustments, enhancements, shifts in your plan to bring things back together and not allow them to be disjointed. Create that continuity of your plan. And that is the key of what we try to do, is we rule things out, just like you do as a doctor in diagnosing a patient of what's the best care for them. You rule things out so you know what it possibly could be, and then you start figuring out, how do I diagnose and treat this situation? And that's the process we take when we work with our doctors.
So that's the difference. You are the person, or we are the team who takes the 10,000-foot view, holistic view of everything. Like, we had a conversation with a doctor earlier this week, and he was mentioning, well, I have this insurance policy and I have that insurance policy. And now that I'm getting older, it probably doesn't make sense. And I'm paying so much for insurance. And it's like, well, your insurance guy isn't going to tell you, oh, you don't need this anymore. So when you have someone who can look at everything, and I've learned so much from you about like how assets are structured. And as your income has gone up and you've invested in real estate, or you've invested in more stocks or whatever it is, if they're not all working together in the most tax efficient way, you're paying the highest possible taxes on each one of those. But again, no one is there to tell you about that. And you're not expected to know that. So who is?
Yeah.
So really that's the huge value there.
And let me give you a couple examples, and just please understand, this is all educational purposes only, right? We're not giving investment advice, or we're telling you what to do with your insurance policies or legal or anything like that. This, obviously, it's a podcast giving educational content, right? So in that same doctor, as well as with other doctors, you brought up insurance. And most people, doctors and business owners, loathe two things: taxes and insurance. Because those are the two things that you're told you have to do. Other than everything else as running a practice or a business, you don't have to do that. You have a choice. And the one thing that we as Americans don't like is someone to tell them what to do. Right? It's just like you cross the border and you're like, no one tells me what to do. But that's why you go into business. That's why you go into practice, because you want to do your thing. But these are the two things, but you do have a choice, both insurance and taxes. And so let's talk about insurance, and let's talk about, as an example, when these doctors set up disability, let's just do disability for example. They get individual disability that usually is to protect them if something happens to them as a physician and they can no longer act as a physician in their specialty. They become disabled, they get insurance proceeds that is to replace as much of their income as possible. Okay. The same is for their practice. It's called business overhead expense. And if that same doctor got disabled, the business overhead expense pays for the overhead expenses of the practice. So when the doctor gets better in 9 months or whatever that disability cause was, their practice is still in business, right? They're not missing out on stuff. That insurance is to pay that, so they don't have to come back 9 months later and start from scratch all over. Right? There's a purpose for that. But when you're first in practice, that's really important. This doctor we were talking about had a 5-year exit strategy, right? 3-5 years that he wanted to get out. And he's talking about these policies, but he's also talking about these other assets and real estate investments that he has. Well, then, you know what? You've invested enough money over your period of career to where now you're getting income that can replace that disability policy. Do you really need to spend $12,000, $15,000, $18,000 a year, $40,000 a year in disability coverages, insurance premiums, to pay for something that you've replaced yourself by making good business decisions? That's $40,000 of expenses. And with the personal disability, that's a personal expense. You're paying taxes on that money to pay that premium. Think about that. If you're paying $10,000 a year in premium and you're in a 37% tax bracket, you're paying, you have to have $15,000 of income to pay for that disability policy. But you've already created this income stream that you're complaining about you're paying taxes on because you've done something with your money. That's what we're talking about, the disconjointed aspect of a situation. Right? Is if you save 40 grand there, you save 30 grand there, you save 5 grand here, that all adds up to a lump sum that could be put into additional assets that creates more cash flow to even replace that income even more. So it doesn't matter if you're doctoring or not. And that's the whole point of being in medical practice or being in a business, is to create assets to put you in a position to where you can create long-lasting legacy for you today and when you retire or you decide to shift from medical to something else, or unfortunately the moment we all pass away and we leave things to our family and our heirs. Right? That's the whole point. What's that continuity? Is it a dotted line or is it a straight line? That's important.
Thanks, Bob. I feel like this is going to be helpful for a lot of people. And Aaron, I appreciate you bringing the topic up of this family office style service, this, rather than disjointed service levels, really having a team that is serving you on your behalf. So again, Doc, we get it. We know that it's kind of a pain in the tail to get all this kind of stuff done and looking at doing things differently. But I promise you it's worth investing a little bit of time in educating yourself around what this can mean for you. And this is the type of thing that people do when you're building generational wealth. This is one of the secrets, having a team that is aligned serving you. So if you want to join us in the comments, feel free to drop any questions that you've got, or maybe just your thoughts. How much togetherness is your team? Like, do you feel like you've got a team that's doing all that? let us know in the comments. Maybe there are people that we want to talk to who serve you well in that capacity. But certainly let us know what questions you've got specifically so we can create content just for you. So Aaron, how can people get in touch with you if they want to set up some time and understand how we can make an impact? What should they do?
Yeah, in the description below, you'll find a link to my calendar as well as links to our LinkedIn profiles. We're all pretty active over there. And I would just encourage you, we start with every client the same way, and we do a 30-day discovery period. And it's a no obligation, low fee, opportunity to have us look at your entire financial picture and how it's all working together. And then at the end of it, we make a recommendation for, a level of membership that meets your specific needs. And, if we can't help you, it's like, okay, great, but probably we can. So it's pretty painless or low pain for a potential very high reward. So reach out and we can tell you a bit more about that.